Hello, Waterloo Region. You're listening to Meet the Candidate on CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. My name is Bob Jonkman. In this episode, we meet Brian Adeba, the Liberal candidate for Kitchener Centre. In Meet the Candidate, Radio Waterloo provides 25 minutes of free airtime to the Waterloo Region candidates running in the 2025 federal election. This is not an interview, but 25 minutes of unstructured time. Candidates could tell you about their platform, the local Waterloo Region issues they'll be tackling, why they're running, or what they do outside of politics. Note that the views expressed are not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. Now let's meet the candidate, Brian Adeba, who's accompanied by Clayton Moore.
Thank you, Bob. What kind of country do we want to be? That's the question at the heart of this election. Whether we're talking about the rising cost of living, immigration, or the future of good jobs in Canada, it's clear that we've got some work to do. On top of all that, we're facing real threats to our sovereignty and economic stability from our closest neighbor. With Donald Trump back in the White House, U.S. tariffs and protectionist policies are already putting pressure on Canadian industries. There's no doubt that this is a pivotal election, and on April 28th, Canadians will choose a government to help guide us through these challenges. Here in Kitchener Centre, that choice feels especially urgent, with Kitchener-Waterloo being ranked among the most vulnerable to U.S. tariffs in all of Canada. Voters here are looking for someone who will stand up for them. My name is Clayton Moore, and today I'll be speaking with one of the people who's put their name forward to stand up for Canada, Brian Adeba. Brian is running to be the next Member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre. We'll talk about what brought him into politics, what he's hearing at the doors, and what he believes can move this country forward. Thank you for coming in today, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Clayton.
Amazing. Well, Brian, this is obviously your first time running, so I'd love to start out by telling listeners a bit about yourself and what motivated you to get involved in politics.
Sure. My name is Brian Adeba, a long-time resident of Kitchener. I have lived here for over 20 years, sort of being associated for over 20 years. I moved to live here full-time in 2010. I'm married. I have two little boys, small boys. One is age 15, the other one is 10. And what motivated me to run for politics? I have some personal experiences as well as experiences that I've seen around the people around me that have sort of motivated me to get into politics. One, a few years ago, I had an operation, a minor surgery, and I was just curious when I asked the doctor, how much would this cost me? And he said, look, this would be tremendously expensive, and in other countries, people actually die because of this lack of access to this simple surgery. And we have to sort of ensure that we maintain the sanctity of the Canada Health Act to ensure that everyone has accessible health care. And so, that kind of planted a seed in my mind. I'm like, yeah, that's great. In 2015, I started hearing rhetoric from politicians on the right, on the conservative side, that sort of suggested that they would like to rethink the outlines of the Canada Health Act, and that kind of unsettled me. And then also just the experiences currently of this shrinking space of democracy, the attempts to sort of take away the inclusiveness of our society here. Lived experiences of people around me in the labor market, experiencing challenges on accessing affordable housing, accessing jobs, and all of that motivated me to sort of put my heart in and throw my heart into the race and to sort of find a way of contributing to society to correct these problems and ensure that we have an inclusive society where everyone has accessible healthcare, affordable housing, and ease the cost of living for everyone.
Hey, that's incredible. And I mean, protecting public health is, I think, incredibly important.
Yep.
And your family must be really proud of you and everything you're doing here.
Well, yes, they are proud of me, but they also realize this is a huge undertaking, and they wonder what it will, what it means for the family as a unit itself. How that contributes to it. And we've had a lot of discussions around the dinner table to sort of lay out what is at stake.
Amazing. Well, it's so great to have the support of your family in there. And you've obviously been out knocking on doors all around Kitchener Centre. So I'd be curious, what do you think is the number one issue in the minds of voters in this election?
Thank you. We've knocked on thousands of doors in almost every neighborhood. And without doubt, the number one issue on people's minds is the issue of the U.S. tariffs on Canada.
Yeah.
And people are kind of worried about that because they think about, like, what does that mean for my job? What does that mean for my access to healthcare? What does that mean for affordable housing? What does that mean for our environment here within Kitchener or Waterloo? And so that's the big issue in people's minds. I think the other issue that is on people's minds is housing accessibility, affordable housing. We have a history of homelessness here. There are about 2,300 people without homes in Kitchener-Waterloo. There's a shortage of about 20,000 housing units here, and that's on top of people's minds. And within people's viewpoints is also the issue of, like, especially for young families that are trying to get into the housing market. And they've been locked out because of the exorbitant prices, and that's an issue that they keep thinking about and bringing up in the conversations I'm having at the doors.
That's all really interesting, and I think really echoes with a lot of what I'm hearing in here. And if we even take a moment to just zoom out for a second, it's there's a lot of folks that are feeling uncertainty. It's they don't necessarily understand, or with the changing news every second, Canadians feel like they don't necessarily know what's happening, what the next week, what their livelihoods are going to look like, even a year from now, even
Absolutely.
a few weeks from now.
Yep.
So if we take a zoom out, I'm curious to hear what kind of leadership you feel we really need in Canada right now.
Well, we got to look at what the threats to our livelihoods is coming from, the source. I think there's the external one, which is mainly the tariffs. And I think what kind of leadership is required for that? You need someone who has the experience of managing interacting with international leaders, steering countries out of crisis. And I think Mark Carney embodies all of that. His role as previous governor of the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada, I think, puts him in strong stead in that light. His international connections and experience. So, to steer us out of this crisis, I think you need someone like that. And when you look at the spectrum of leaders in Ottawa, political leaders, and I think Mark Carney has the best resume for that job.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's obviously in Kitchener Centre. I referenced this a bit earlier, but we feel some of those economic pressures really acutely with our focus on industry. So I'd be curious what your kind of larger vision for Canada looks like, and how specifically does Kitchener Centre fit into that vision?
Well, I think we have a manufacturing sector here, and a lot of the income that we have in this region is derived from that. It's derived from trade with the U.S. And I think so to sort of ensure that we cushion the impact of the tariffs on people within Kitchener-Waterloo, we need to explore, we need a leadership that will explore how we can enhance interprovincial trade among ourselves. There's a lot of potential in interprovincial trade within Canada, and I think we need to explore that fully so that we're not only reliant on the U.S. And I think also we need a leadership that can sort of look abroad and try to expand where we sell our products, right? The U.S. Certainly is, as shown by recent events, become a little unreliable. And we need to cushion against that impact in the future. We perhaps have not seen the last of people like Donald Trump. There are going to be incarnations of these types in the U.S. political system, and perhaps would be even worse than what we have right now. And so we got to think global. We got to think new markets, and we got to expand into provincial trade within Canada.
Interesting. So you see this as a lot of strengthening this Canada as a whole, and coming out of this stronger, moving some of those more manufacturing here locally rather than looking for trading partners elsewhere?
Absolutely. I was just listening to a newscast today, and something about the automobile sector and how there's a local manufacturing presence Canadian-made vehicles. But we need to expand that. We need to ensure that Canadians buy local, and by bringing down the barriers that kind of prevent that from happening.
Interesting. So you've already hit on this a little bit, my next question, but I kind of talked about that growing pressure coming in from the U.S. and how that's really dominated the conversation, news cycle, and has really concerned a lot of Canadians, particularly within their retirement funds, their jobs for their futures. So what do you think the appropriate response is to the economic challenges that are really being faced by Canada and the U.S.? Is it all that breaking down those interprovincial trade barriers?
I think we need measures that counter that, and one of that is also imposing tariffs on U.S. goods, and that's happening right now. And from there, the income that is accrued from these tariffs and then are diverted back to help workers. I think there is about an estimated $8 billion that will be generated from imposing similar tariffs on counter tariffs on U.S.-made products, and in that regard, I think the money that we get from that should be plowed back to help workers. And I mentioned this also previously. I think we need to find new markets again, so that we sell more abroad. And there is potential in Southeast Asia, Australia, and even in Africa, and Europe as well. So we need to do that. And then, of course, bring down the barriers that prevent interprovincial trade within Canada.
Interesting. And then I guess maybe diving into the timelines of that, because a lot of folks are feeling some of those issues more acutely. Do you think we can start incorporating some of those other trading partners immediately and ramp up that manufacturing? Or what do you think the time horizons on this might look like?
Well, it should be as soon as possible. I mean, Donald Trump has been very volatile in his pronouncements, and there's no certainty on anything right now. And so it behooves of us to actually start immediately after April 28th, start establishing those relationships with potential trade partners abroad, bringing down the interprovincial barriers immediately, and getting things going so that any negative impact on workers is mitigated considerably.
Amazing. And I guess then I'm kind of curious if we zoom in on that really hyper-local level. We've discussed a lot about incorporating other trade partners in here and how Canada can really tackle this a little bit more broadly. But as an individual member of Parliament, and specifically the member of Parliament for Kitchener Centre, I'm curious how you plan to stand up for jobs and really make sure that we're protecting the industries here in Waterloo Region and Kitchener Centre specifically.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is to ensure that this region remains competitive economically, that we continue to generate jobs. And the way to do that from a broad perspective is to incentivize investment in this area. So we need to open up new possibilities, whether it's in the high-tech sector, whether it's in the automobile sector, in every sector. So by doing that, we need to look at how we can incentivize investments to come here, whether it's through offering incentives that look like tax breaks, cutting down red tape. Those should be on the table, and that's something that if I am elected, I will put into perspective and fight for.
Interesting. So you really see this as kind of strengthening all of the industries that Kitchener-Waterloo is already so strong in, particularly within that innovation and manufacturing space, and making it easier for business owners to expand operations and find other buyers in the foreign markets?
Absolutely. The more money we have, then we can focus on addressing the pressing concerns in this riding, housing, ensuring that we have a clean environment, we cut down on pollution, we build an efficient transit system. All of that requires money. And so investment, increasing the potential to earn more in this region would be a top priority for me.
Amazing. That's all really interesting. And what impact do you expect removing some of that red tape and making it a little bit easier for businesses to operate would have on Kitchener Centre locally here?
I think perhaps one visible aspect of that would be the fast tracking of buildings, right? Of building, yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for sharing. And it's no secret here that elections are really fundamentally all about choices. So I'm curious to hear, in your mind, what do you really see that sets you apart from other candidates in this race?
You know, Clayton, I have spent about almost 10 years right now involved in policy work. In this role, I have looked at problems, and then I have looked at like what are the deficiency in policy to address those problems, whether it's locally within a specific country, whether it's within a region, and also whether it's at the level of the European Union and the United States and at the UN. So that has given me a unique perspective of understanding policy, identifying problems, and crafting solutions to it based on research. And I do research actually to identify these problems. Secondly, I am local. I live here. I have family here. I have friends who work in the manufacturing sector, including my wife herself. So I understand the local issues here deeply, and combining that policy perspective with an understanding of local issues, I think can lead to a situation where I can craft workable and implementable solutions.
Amazing. I mean, it's obviously being into the policy always makes a huge difference in really understanding those issues. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about here today is really kind of big, and it feels like it'll take time to implement, and folks are still going to feel the pain now. And I've been outdoors following you around and some other candidates in and around Waterloo Region, and one of the things that I keep hearing is that some voters are feeling really disillusioned. They're really frustrated with the challenges that they're facing, and they feel too big to challenge in the amount of time that we need to do to really support Canadians. So I'm curious to hear what you would say to somebody who's really not sure that their vote will even make a difference in this election.
Your vote matters. It matters a lot, and don't waste it. Use it, and I'll explain why. In some parts of the world, people actually die because of elections, because of fraudulent systems, election systems. We don't have that. We're fortunate to live in an established democracy. Your vote matters because it is your avenue to hold your politicians accountable. Secondly, your vote matters because it's a representation you will elect someone who represents your values in Parliament. Your vote matters, especially in this era where democracy is receding globally. Your vote will matter because it will incentivize or inspire other peoples in other parts of the world that are aspiring to be democratic in their systems.
Amazing. It's getting a little bit easier to vote all the time. And as a gentle reminder here, Election Day is obviously on April 28th, with advance polls open on Easter weekend in there. And Brian, we've got a bit under 4 minutes here. So I would want to kind of wrap up a little bit here, but I'm curious to hear if there's anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to shed a light on, or if there's anything that you think that voters really need to know about you, your vision for Kitchener Centre, how you really see the future of Canada as people get ready to head to the polls on April 28th.
I think it's important to understand that we in the Liberal Party are serious about the values that people hold dear in Kitchener Centre, whether it's on the environment, whether it's cutting down pollution, having an efficient transport system that's clean, whether it's affordable housing. Those are some of our values. And as we move forward with this election, I think it's important to put into perspective that we need a representative that can actually be at the center of decision making and get things done for you. We need to combine, in our choice, values, and think about how those values can be implemented. We just need to move beyond idealism, combine idealism with with policies that can be implemented, and a representative that can actually sit at the decision-making table and contribute to implementing policy in realistic terms.
So to you, this really all comes down to getting things done, really moving the needle.
Getting things done, and moving the needle on the pressing matters that we face here, and that comes with having a little bit of clout in Ottawa at the committee level, at the in the House of Commons. You don't need a representative anymore that has to ask someone to speak you need a representative that can speak on their own and not seek permission to speak in the House of Commons.
Amazing. It's And I guess here with our last minute and a half, I mean, I wanted to thank you, Brian, for putting your name forward. I think it takes a lot of courage to stand up for what you believe in and to really fight for Canadians and uphold the values that you share and that this community shares, because Kitchener Centre is an incredibly vibrant and incredible community. So I'd like to give the last minute and a bit over to you to say any last words to leave the people before the 28th.
More than anything, this election is really about who is best positioned to lead us to counter the massive tariff threat that's facing us. And in making your decision as we go forward, put that into perspective. We are in dire straits, and we need to get out of this quickly. And it's important to have a leadership that can deliver.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Brian. As I'm sure everybody knows, this election is going to make a huge impact on the livelihoods of Canadians all around this country. In Kitchener Centre, we really want to make sure that we're electing somebody that's going to uphold our values. And we've got to hear a little bit from Brian here today, who really wants to make sure that we focus on action, accountability, and delivering for our community here, protecting our industries, and creating a clear pathway to the middle class for as many people as possible. So, Brian, I'd like to thank you for being here, chatting with us a little bit here today. And with all of that, unless you'd have any final words, I'd like to thank you so much and remind everybody, please get out and vote, because this election is going to make a huge impact on our lives now and on many generations to come. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Brian.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Brian Adeba, the Liberal candidate for Kitchener Centre on Meet the Candidate. The views expressed were those of the candidate, not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. All Waterloo Region candidates were invited to meet the candidate, but some candidates have declined to appear on the radio, and some have not responded at all. Remember, the election is on Monday, the 28th of April. Show notes, podcast, and video will be available shortly on the Radio Waterloo website at radiowaterloo.ca/MTC. Meet the Candidate is produced by me, Bob Jonkman, in the studios of CKMS-FM. The theme music is Falling Sky by Jason Shaw of Audionautics.com and used under Creative Commons Attribution Only 4.0 International License.